And sunny Bonani, it is 8:01 Central African time. Welcome to Circuit Paul Ricard. Welcome to France. Welcome to the fifth race of the top tier of the BrakeAway Racing League season. My name is Bob O'Connor. I will be with you throughout 18 minutes of live qualifying as we have a 12-driver field represented here in the fight for the championship and indeed the battle to maintain their positions in the top tier of the BrakeAway Racing League. Thank you for choosing BrakeAway. Please remember to join us every single Thursday, either 7:30 Central African time or indeed 8 p.m. Central African time, as we look to see who exactly will make do on their promise to A, keep their seat, and B, fight among the top contenders in this league. We have Thiago Maestro, who is pulling a leaf out of Tapiso's hat by being one of the first drivers out on circuit at this very popular testing circuit in years gone by. It is a 15-corner layout that we're racing around here in France, and it is a track which has a decent mix of fast, low, and medium speed corners, which is why it is such a great venue for testing purposes. In today's race, we will have 18 minutes of qualifying, and if you're brand new to Formula One, how it effectively works is in the qualifying, these drivers have, well, in this case, 18 minutes to send this car around the track as fast as they possibly can. The fastest times, of course, are ordered from 1 to 14, soon to be, hopefully 15 if the Ducho can rejoin this lobby. And, yep, we will then get a sense of who will be qualifying or starting the race at the front of the grid. Nuccio, thankfully, is back in the lobby. We have Donovan Lacka for Team Williams, Duke and Sige, figure of speech, representing Alfa Romeo. It's a full house as far as that team is concerned. Danuccio and Smirch Django make it a full representation for Team Ferrari. Zotal representing Red Bull. Loveness is representing Haas, as is Ban Coe, who has recently joined the lobby for the remaining 15 and a half minutes around this circuit. Welcome to France. Welcome to Thiago Maestro's first push lap on a set of mediums, perhaps just getting a proper feel for the track. It does not look like Thiago's given it a proper push. Yeah, he seems content just to, well, go on a little bit of a joyride. It does not look to be a representative lap as far as pace is concerned, so we will hop on over instead to Bongani, Debo Crocodile, distant cousin of Debo Alligator, possibly Debo Cayman. 15 minutes of the session to go. Debo Crocodile has put on a set of soft compound tires, not wasting any time as far as putting in his best push lap at the start. Looks like Thiago Maestro has gone spinning there on the exit of, I believe, that was turn 6, where Thiago went for a little bit of a spin, as he's not set a representative time lap. Meanwhile, Cicle, the would-be champion, is already on an out lap, looking to show what he is made of. I believe in Tier 2 last night, Caboza set a time of the 1 minute 29.6, which is good enough for pole position. What sort of times will we be seeing here? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Man Ray already says Debo Crocodile is very good around here, and Man Ray not only expecting Debo to qualify in the top 5, but indeed to finish among the top 5 drivers when all is said and done. We will have 27 laps of racing, so long way to go. Oh, but Debo Crocodile, perhaps overconfident there, losing his bearings there. I believe that was a turn on the exit of 12. That he lost it. So Debo Crocodile is going to have to give it another go all the way from scratch. And since that will be the case, we will instead watch to see how Don Rabico has taken it. His Sector 1 split, well, I believe, was in the 21 seconds. So watch that very closely. Cicle, meanwhile, who is looking to give Debo, or I beg your pardon, Don Rabico, all of the headaches, has just crossed the line to begin their first push lap. We'll catch up with Cicle in a moment or two. This, however, is the championship leading Don Rabico, who since the start of this season has amassed a total of 94 points, putting a bit of daylight between themselves and Seatley, who was in second on 61 points, as Duke sets a 129.867. That is the benchmark early on here with 13 minutes of this session to go. We're on board with Don Rabico on the sequence of corners where Debo Crocodile was perhaps a little bit over-eager. Oh, it's a slight twitch of the rear there. Don Rabico has to catch it and make sure that the lap is still valid, and that is indeed the case for the Mercedes W14 out here on track. He now navigates the 15th and final corner to point that car straight down the start-finish straight, and he will cross the line hoping for a quicker time. He gets the quickest time by some margin. It's a 1 minute 29.665. That is the benchmark, the new benchmark set by Don Rabico. Seatley will already have been notified by now what the benchmark is, so we'll get a sense of just how much pace the McLaren superstar has in the bag. Now navigating the final sector as he rides a little bit of the curve through that initial part of the right-hander. Now down to fourth gear in the penultimate corner, and will navigate the 15th and final turn through third gear, and then stepping it on the throttle, sending that McLaren screaming down towards the line. It is Seatley with the quickest time of the day by some margin. 129.155 is the new benchmark set by the three-time champion of the top tier. What about Jonathan Lacka, who is now approaching the line? Behind Don is an Alpha Tauri. It may yet be Mandla, because it looks like, Debo Crocodile has been disqualified from the session. It is a wasted effort by the person being cheered on by Man Ray. Here comes Jonathan Lacka answering the top runners. Crosses the line for the sixth quickest time, 130.473. Meanwhile, the Alpha of Mandla has also come back into the pits. Simpson's Sector 2 split was in the 49 seconds, so watching very closely to see what Simpiwe Zondi can do here today. Since the start of this season, Simps has racked up a total of 20 points, as you see him riding the limits of the track there. 20 points for Simps is good enough for 7th in the Tier 1 championship standing thus far. Buenas noches a todos, says Thiago Maestro in the comment section. Let us make it interesting. We've seen Thiago on a set of medium tires. What sort of pace is Thiago hiding in the bag, in the pocket, as he has now fitted a set of soft tires? Here comes Simpiwe Zondi towards the line for the quickest time of the day. It's a 128.709 for Simpiwe Zondi, who lays down the gauntlet to the top runners, and it's a sensational effort by the Aston Martin driver. Debo Crocodile, we commiserate with them in the comment section, who was being cheered on by Man Ray, who had so much faith in him, but he says he messed things up for himself. Take a bow, Simpiwe Zondi. Quickest time of the day by some remarkable margin. How about that? Smirch Django, a former champion of this top tier, is here to stake his claim on the best time that we could yet see. Caboza, barely believing the kind of times that we're seeing here today. Caboza, of course, who was sitting very pretty and comfortable at the top of the timing sheet yesterday, is now picking up his jaw from the floor as Django sends it screaming towards the line for the third quickest, 129.226. That is Smirch Django's answer. It is Simpiwe Zondi from Seatley from Django, your top three runners thus far. Don Rabico has come back into the pits. Of course, not content with the kind of times that he has set today. The Haas duo of Ban Kobe and Loveness yet to show us what they are made of, as Ban Kobe has fitted on a brand spanking set of soft tires. He will now cross the line to begin his new push lap in earnest. On board we go with Ban Kobe, a man under pressure. Just 1 point in this season amassed thus far for Ban Kobe, currently 18th in the standings. And I would let you know, folks, that we do have a brand new driver in the top tier, rejoining the top tier courtesy of Billy Hendricks, sadly vacating their tier 1 seat. That means Mex, who was the championship leader of tier 2, is back in the top tier, and Mex will have a total of 7 races to secure survival in tier 1. Can it be done? Well, hopefully Mex can join before all is said and done here today, or perhaps we'll see Mex next week. This, however, is Ban Kobe, now navigating the middle sector of this track, representing Haas, and of course, still in the pit lane is their teammate Loveness. A 50.921 Sector 2 split is Ban Kobe's benchmark thus far. It now takes that right-hander flat out. We'll lift off the throttle over here to take this particular corner in fifth gear, as Circuit is also wondering how on earth do we compete with the scorching effort that Simpiwe Zandi has just laid down as the benchmark. We saw Don Radical's on board making that crucial error in the third sector, which cost him a precious few tenths. How much closer can Don Radical get to the likes of Django, Circuit, and Simpiwe Zandi? Time will tell as Ban Kobe crosses the line for the 9th quickest time, a 1:31.317 for the Haas driver. Romeo Mandla Massengo had a Sector 1 split of a 22.6 and now rides the curbs too heavily there to invalidate, just as we got on board with Mandla, who will now have to save those brand spanking new tires to bring that AlphaTauri all the way back home to the starting line to give it an almighty push once again. This is the Nuccio, who has just begun their push for possible pole position. Representing the red-hot scarlet red Ferrari, their teammate is all the way up in P3. Oh, as the Nuccio had to make a huge correction of the steering there. It is still a valid lap, however. It looks like he's still giving it an almighty go, a decent solid push, as he now approaches the chicane at turns 8 and 9. The Nuccio still valid. We've seen drivers struggle to keep their laps valid, but not so for the Nuccio. Sector 2 split of a 51.0. So he will feel perhaps that he still has something decent in the bag on his first representative lap. Wide of the apex there through the slower right-handers, after, of course, he did go flat out through 10. And now tackles 12, 13, and will hit the brakes into turn number 14, which is the penultimate corner of this Circuit Paul Ricard. Now, into 15 goes the Nuccio, and sends that Ferrari screaming down towards the line. The top 3 drivers, Simpiwe, Circuit, Django. What can the Nuccio do? The answer is 1:31.009, currently 10th quickest. Work to do for the Ferrari driver. Loveness is out on track. Sector 1 split of a 22.382. Now navigating the second sector. Sends that Haas screaming down towards the flat-out right-hander of turn number 10. And navigates that cleanly. Does the Haas of Loveness. Tato, a.k.a. Loveness, who has already tasted a podium. Not for the first time in his storied Tier 1 career. Person who's never really fallen too much in relegation trouble in their long career as part of the top tier of the BrakeAway Racing League. Looking to show his class once again, show what he is made of. Tato, Loveness, now through turn number 15, has had a third place finish for a total of 17 championship points. Crosses the line. 1:30.349 is the 9th quickest time for the Haas driver, who then takes all the liberties, goes completely over the track limits, trying to rush back, perhaps to fit a new set of tires that can make his way back. Zotal took these softs for a 2-lap run and has set a 1:29.940. Good enough thus far for P8. Also rushing back towards the pits to fit a brand spanking set of tires. So Zotal, Loveness making their way back. 4.5 minutes of this session to go. Zotal would feel that he's got more than enough time here to do something special, set a representative lap here. Circuit is going to be among the first of the top runners to go for their what could be their final push run. Turn 1 for Circuit on the limit. Took so much of that apex, did the superstar McLaren driver. Now coming in towards the braking zone. You're seeing how comfortable he is taking all of those limits there. Now this is 6. He carries it through 4th gear up to 5th. And we'll take the left-hand kink of 7 and send it screaming straight down towards the chicane. That being turns number 8 and 9. Circuit has seen what the benchmark is. We saw him responding in the comment section to the time that Simpiwe Simps Zandi set. At the 3.5 minutes of the session to go, Circuit will now go flat out through the upcoming right-hander of turn number 10. Sid's Figure of Speech is also out on track on a brand spanking set of soft tires. Sid's Figure of Speech's best time thus far is good enough for P9. Cicle is gunning for pole position. How much improvement can the McLaren superstar find? You're seeing how much speed he's carrying through this third sector. Slight twitch there of the steering wheel as he now looks to attack turn number 14, the left-hander. Oh no, Cicle abandons that push lap, and I do wonder if that is going to be that for Cicle. Meanwhile, let's jump straight on over to Sid's Figure of Speech. Sid Jabaliso has found about almost 0.3 of a second come the end of the first sector. Now, navigating the middle sector, he was flat out through 10, is going to lift off the throttle and go all the way down to 6th to 5th gear through turns 11 and 12. Let's see whether or not he can keep it together here. The rear from that helicopter shot was looking like it may have been giving a little bit of attitude, but Stage Fig will feel that he still has it all together. That was 14. This is 15. Wide of the apex through the final corner. As we get another beautiful overhead helicopter shot, we will see the Alfa Romeo screaming towards the line. It's Sid's Figure of Speech. He does improve. 29.774 is the 7th quickest time, but a lot of drivers yet to go on their final push, their final run, their final say, if you will, on this here Circuit Paul Ricard. Mandla Massengo is currently out on track, has the 11th quickest time up until this particular point. If you've just joined us, welcome to Tier 1, welcome to France, welcome to Circuit Paul Ricard. It is the 5th race of the BrakeAway Racing League season as Mandla has completely abandoned that push lap attempt. So instead, we will hop on over to the many contenders currently out on their push lap, yet to begin their final laps in earnest. Mandla, work to do, 130.596, nothing to be scoffed at, but in this stacked field, some work to do. Donovan Laka becomes the latest retiree from this quali session, joining Debo Crocodile, whose session was ruined courtesy of an early DSQ, an early disqualification. The Nucho is also out of this session, perhaps feeling that that is that as far as all the pace that he could muster, so we'll have to catch up with him. Now, Don Radico is going to look to answer the gauntlet laid down by Simpiwe Zandi, a 128.709. What a sensational benchmark that is in the top tier today in BrakeAway Racing League thus far in this 5th round. If you've just joined us, thank you for making BrakeAway Racing League your league of choice. Sector 2 now being navigated by the screaming jet black Mercedes W14 in the hands of Don Rabico, the defending champion, who is being hunted down by the likes of Cicle, Django, Duke, Tiago, and Sid's Figure of Speech, not forgetting, of course, Simpiwe Zandi. He navigated turns 8 and 9 cleanly, and I tell you what, Don Radico has gained 3.5 of a second come the end of Sector 2. Needs an inch-perfect final sector here to have a sensational final run and to possibly topple some of these top runners who will not be making it easy by any stretch of the imagination. Don Radico has been the class of the field as far as race pace is concerned, but can he put something special together now as he attacks turn number 14 and looks to line it up perfectly to perhaps kiss the apex, which he does ever so lightly. That was through turn number 15. Here comes Don Radico's answer towards Simpiwe Zandi. Will it be enough? No, it's the second quickest time, but by very close margins, 28.878. Nothing to be scoffed at this particular point, folks. And it looks like Zotal has also just crossed the line. The best that he could do was a 29.546. There's an AlphaTauri on the verge, an AlphaTauri on the way. It is Thiago Maestro, but sadly, come the end of Sector 2, he had lost a little bit of time relative to his best. Can he find improvement? Yes, he does. Through Sector 3, he pips Zotal with a 29.440. Looks like there's a Ferrari on the way. No, it's a Ferrari going into the pits. Or is it? It's Smirch Django, whose teammate has seemingly gone into the pits. No, that is Duke into the pits and retiring from the session. Here comes Django Zancher looking to topple the top 3. Can he do it? He tries, but 4th is the best that he could do. 29.159 there for Smirch Django. Now, it is Cicle who has found about 6/100ths of a second come the end of Sector 2. Now, through the final corner comes the McLaren of Cicle. Can he find something special to pip Don Rabico at the line? The answer is no. It's third quickest, 129.155 for Cicle. Simpiwe Zandi hangs on to pole position in France. Don Rabico will start in P2. Beautiful day, blue skies. Does not look like it is, well, it does not look like we're on the brink of any inclement weather. But of course, you never know. The drivers, of course, would be well aware at this particular point in time. Let's see how our championship protagonists will fare. Don Rabico, your championship leader. C-Clay is second. Django is third. Tiago Maestro, what a debut season at the top tier, currently fourth in the driver's standing. Duke is fifth. Debo Crocodile is sixth. Simpiwe Zandi on pole position is currently seventh as we get 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. The only time South Africans look forward to the lights going out. We are racing in France. It's Simpiwe Zandi versus Don Rabico in the front row. Simpiwe Zandi looks to get his line inch perfect towards turn number 1. C-Clay attacking Don Rabico, and Django is giving C-Clay hell there through the first sequence of corners. C-Clay hangs on to P3. Django is still chasing. Duke is hanging on to that P5 spot from Tiago Maestro, who's hunting it down. They stay in formation here at the beginning. Meanwhile, in the midfield, it is Sidge Figure of Speech hunting down Jonathan Laka, who looks to get his line is perfect. Contact between the Nucho and it looks like Sidge Figure of Speech, but they both are still running. They both are still valid. Ban Kobe gains a place there from Don Debo Crocodile down in the midfield. Let's go back to the action all the way at the front, and they look like they're staying in that same formation. Let's get a sense of how the positions have changed. From positions 1 to 7, it is unchanged. Meanwhile, all the action is happening in the midfield. It is Simpiwe Zandi from Don Rabico from C-Clay. Django is still in fourth. They're running in an inch perfect line as this early DRS train, way before DRS has been enabled, takes early shape over here. Don Rabico looking to apply the pressure early on and looking to force Simpiwe Zandi into some errors, courtesy of feeling the pressure over there. And Django is also looking to keep definitely Duke at bay as he himself applies the early pressure on the McLaren of C-Clay. Yellow flag, it looks like down in the midfield. One of the drivers is that Mandla, who brought out the yellow flag. Possibly he's moving again, but a big gap between Mandla and Ban Kobe. Mandla's fallen back by about 3 seconds already come the end of this first lap. Debo Crocodile is behind, of course, on a recovery drive, and Tato, aka Loveness, may have made a huge error early on to force himself now into some very, very early pressure. Now all these drivers are running well within a second of one another. It is early days here, folks, as Simpiwe Zandi looks to keep the Mercedes W13 of Don Rabico at bay. Welcome to lap number 2. We will soon be getting DRS enabled, and I'll tell you what, they're looking very, very good. Nobody taking unnecessary risks too early at this particular point in time. Down in the midfield, the Nucho has gained 3 places, the biggest mover of the day thus far as positions gained are concerned. As you can see, it is a full complement of medium tires from positions 1 through 8. Sage Figure of Speech breaks the pattern down in P9 with those hard tires. He's gonna, of course, have some work cut out to make sure that they stay in good nick as he comes under early pressure from the Nuccio, who looks set to take him possibly now to turn number 11. Oh, contact between the Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, not for the first time here today, but both these cars managed to keep it together as the Nuccio had to make sure that he's hoping and praying, of course, that he does not take too much early damage with 27 total laps to be raced over here. It is a long way for the Nuccio were he to take a significant damage, having made the slightest of contact there with the Alfa Romeo ahead of him. Don Ravico, the quickest time of the day, 1:32.128 is the benchmark, as you've just seen the graphic indicating when the pit stops would be expected. Looks like Massigo is into the pits early on. Perhaps a mistake, perhaps some damage that Mandla would have taken. He is now going to have to fight all the way down from P15. It's a stacked field here, folks, and the 86er is looking to fly the Alpine flag as high as he possibly can here today. Joined the lobby late, but managed, of course, to place that Alpine ahead of their teammate who was disqualified in that quali session. Back up to the front we go. The battle ostensibly for the podium places and later on the win itself. The top two, Simpiwe, Don Radical, streak ahead of Seaclay and break that DRS as far as Don Radical is concerned. The gap between the McLaren and this and the Mercedes ahead is now 1.1 seconds. Seaclay under pressure, of course, from former teammate and nemesis Smirt Django, who himself is being hunted down by definitely Duke with 3 laps elapsed. It is going to be some sensational racing that we are likely to see here. Not too many dramatic incidents, thankfully no early retirements, with still so much racing to go. It's an early battle of wits as we see the vantage point from the back of Seaclay's McLaren, which is being hunted down by definitely Duke, who has used up so much of his battery power trying to stay in touch with the front 3. As you can see, he uses a little bit more to bring that battery down now to 13-14%. Meanwhile, Duke has also been using up so much of that ERS down to 21%. What about Seaclay relatively? Well, it looks like for once Seaclay is not playing ERS management as efficiently as he does in other races. Now down to 16%. As even Don Ravico is really struggling here, folks, to manage that battery power. He's using all of that battery, and Simpiwe Zandi has the pace, he has the lead, and he has a significant advantage as far as remaining battery power is concerned, at about half of his battery power remaining. So work to do for Don Ravico, who will look to hopefully get this done and try to streak ahead. But at this point, of course, Don Ravico, unless his engineers are keeping a close eye on Simpiwe Zandi and indeed on this broadcast, might not have any idea how much battery power Simpiwe Zandi is still stacking up. So perhaps he will be thinking they're in a similar boat as far as remaining electrical power is concerned. But work to do for Don Ravico as Zotal in the midfield looks to apply all the pressure to the rookie Thiago Maestro, who's done so well to be among the top 4 placed drivers in the Drivers' Championship. They go wheel to wheel here in the drag race towards turn number 1. But it looks like Zoltal's going to have the advantage. Behind them comes Jonathan Laka, who has front row seats as, Thiago Maestro, of course, shuts the door as he gets onto the racing line on the exit of turns number 1 and 2. It is also close between these drivers, fighting it out for P6. Thiago Maestro has just lost that position. Jonathan Laka is here to pick up the pieces should the AlphaTauri driver make the tiniest of errors at this particular point. Running also close, it is Zotal leading this trio, who have a little bit of daylight between themselves and Sage Figure of Speech, who's about 2.3 seconds behind this 3-way fight. Django has overtaken Seaclay down further ahead. We'll catch up with them in a minute or two as we see Donovan Laka with he's going to go for it down towards the chicane. He was close, but no cigar, not then. It was, of course, not exactly the moment, not the time to be going for that particular move as they run in formation here. Once again, Thiago possibly on the attack versus Zotal through this flat out turn 10. And now, of course, Zotal's going to slam the brakes or lift off the throttle at the very least, as does Thiago Maestro, lifting off to about 40 fourth gear, and they're running at a similar pace. Nothing separating these three drivers. Zotal now in the pound seat in this battle for P6, giving nothing away, making Thiago Maestro work for that potential P6 spot. So much racing still here to go, as Django is now up to the podium places, nudging former teammate Cifle down to P4, and Cifle will now have to contend with definitely Duca, who has not been making many friends in Tier 1 this season with those moments of contact that he had in previous races that we've seen. But right now, Duca is going to be fighting tooth and nail to make sure that Cifle stays as close as possible. This is, of course, the battle for P6 that Donathan Laka, huffing, puffing, trying to reel Thiago Maestro in. Sage figure of speech versus the Nuccio, a battle which has raged pretty much from the time the lights went out, and it looks like just as we hopped off the action between the Williams and the Red Bull further ahead, they managed to battle it out a little bit, and it looks like Django and Cifle are fighting it out. Oh, contact between the McLaren and the Ferrari as we catch up with this action. Cifle is giving nothing away, but here comes Duke. Will they go three wide now as they run towards the right-hander of turn number 10. Cifle on the inside, Django on the outside. They make contact, and they both go spinning off the track. It is disaster for Cifle and Smirch Django, who will both feel perhaps that they would have been slighted over there, and Django perhaps did not come off as badly as Cifle there, who went spinning down to P10 and under pressure, possibly even from the 86er. When all is said and done, Capoza says, I saw it coming. Perhaps that was what Capoza is saying. Cifle will be seething at that moment, but now he just has to contend with Zotal, it seems. Nope, Cifle is coming into the pits, trying not to get that time penalty. Perhaps he took significant damage. Capoza saying, I saw that Kid K hurling some accusations Django's way of possible dirty driving there, as Cifle finally switches those tires, which were perhaps screaming at this particular point. Cifle had some safety car luck last time out. Can Lady Luck smile in the McLaren driver this time out? Time will tell. Don Rabico and Simpiwe Zondi at some point off camera actually had swapped positions, but right now it is Simpiwe Zondi back up to the front as they now make their way towards the chicane at turn number 8. Don Rabico rides the curb quite heavily there. Simpiwe Zondi comfortable, flying here in France. He will now look to make sure that he does not fall foul of track limits and rack up unnecessary 3-second time penalties. We've seen it happen before for Simpiwe Zondi. Now just needs to keep it clean, keep it together, keep it level-headed with 20 laps of racing still to go. So much action in the top tier of the BrakeAway Racing League. Thank you for joining us tonight. If it is among your first times watching, please make sure you subscribe to our channel. Please like the stream if you have not done so already. As always, we always look forward to hearing some of your thoughts, your comments, as Simpiwe Zondi tries to get that line inch perfect through the final corner, knowing how much pressure he is under, courtesy of Don Rabico, who now comes screaming down towards turn number 1. He's been charging his battery as much as he possibly can, Simpiwe Zondi, now up to 60%, whereas Don Rabico languishing at the 30% mark. It's advantage Simpiwe as far as track position is concerned. Advantage Simpiwe as far as remaining battery power is concerned, as that battle rages on. Back to the tussle between the Nuccio and Sidge figure of speech. We've seen these two swap positions time and again as the 86er becomes the latest driver slapped with a time penalty for track limit incursions. Lap 8 of 28. Welcome to France, folks. Welcome to this battle for P7. Sidge figure of speech, the Nuccio. Oh, moment there. The Nuccio really had to catch that rear and loses all that momentum. But he was within DRS, was within a second at the most recent detection point, but right now is going to be falling into the clutches of Zotal from 9th spot, inching closer and closer to the back of the Ferrari. Behind Zotal is the 86er, who's doing well here, finding himself in the points. What is Cicle's ceiling of this particular race? Asked Wandal Shezi. Came into the pits much earlier, of course, than intended, courtesy of that moment, that dramatic moment that we saw earlier on. It looks like Smirch Django, meanwhile, is having a titanic tussle with Thiago Maestro. We'll hop on to that particular battle. Donovan Laka is also here. It's a three-way fight between these guys. What's the case of what could have been for Cyclade? Would have been right in the thick of this particular battle. Were it not for that dramatic moment that saw Cyclade come into the pits much earlier. Here comes Thiago on the attack. Lifts off the throttle before turn number 1. Smirts Django, making that car as wide as possible. Making Thiago go the long way around, which would have compromised his entry into turn number 2. But of course, Thiago, wiser than that, biding his time here behind the Scarlet Red Ferrari. Donovan Laka, front row seats to this battle for P4 ostensibly. Definitely Duke now within the podium places, courtesy of that huge moment as Ban Colby retires from the session. He retires in the pits, Ban Colby, as Thiago Maestro attacks on the outside before the chicane of turn number 8. Now up to P4 is the AlphaTauri driver, holding his own in his rookie season. It's Thiago Maestro up to the top 4 spots. Now 5 seconds behind that P3 spot. On board we go with Django, who has just relinquished that P4 spot. Ban Colby, having just racked up 1 championship point in this season thus far, struggling out here in France, retiring in the pit in the 9th lap of a total 27. It is now Thiago's turn to hold the fort and to keep everybody at bay. Meanwhile, in the front, Don Ravico back up to the lead. Simpiwe Zondi, it is now his turn to reclaim that lead from Don Ravico, if that can be done. Django, Thiago, midfield tussle. Sensational stuff that we've seen from the AlphaTauri and Ferrari superstars, respectively. Donovan Laka still biding their time, charging that battery, 73%. We've seen Don take advantage of these types of situations many a time through his Tier 1 career, perhaps also biding his time just to make sure that he is there to snatch any opportunity that presents itself between now and the end of proceedings. Down to the midfield we go. Debo Crocodile versus Zotal, who had already been overtaken by Galalatsang, the 86er. Zotal now 5.2 seconds off the pace. May have had a moment that we could have missed off camera. Debo Crocodile on a track that, according to Manrate, he does very well in. We'll see whether or not he can get it done. Meanwhile, the battle for the race lead once again. These two within 0.3 of one another. They've been running a relay race at the front, passing the baton of P1 from Mercedes to Aston Martin, back to Mercedes. As Estello notes that definitely Duke is looking very good today. Running a fairly lonely race is Duke in P3. 5 seconds behind the leading pair. And indeed, Duke has a 5-second buffer between himself and Thiago, who is chasing. Now it is Simpiwe Zondi's turn to go on the hunt. Opted not to use any ERS there in hunting down. Don Ravico, slight twitch there from Simpiwe Zondi. Who's content to bide his time and make sure that it is Don Ravico who uses up as much of their battery as possible. Now, as Don tackles turns 6 and the left-hander of turn 7, he himself has significantly less battery power relative to Simpiwe Zondi. Will he go for it now, or is he just content to stay within the slipstream? The answer, seemingly, is the latter. Simpiwe Zondi happy to push the Mercedes along and make sure that it is Duke who is losing battery power. Meanwhile, Django on the attack on the inside of the AlphaTauri and into the braking zone, snatches P4 back from Thiago Maestro, who will now have to fight for that position all over again. These two also playing a game of chicken, a game of musical chairs from that P4 spot. And, a lot of racing still to go between these two. Thiago Maestro looking very, very good in his rookie Tier 1 campaign. A very, very good addition to the BrakeAway Racing League stable. Came through the ranks all the way down from P Tier 3 as Mandla becomes the latest retiree. Is that in the pits? Yes. Mandla is out of this race. Was content just to retire that car, joining the likes of Ban Colby as Mandla's season continues to struggle it looks like Don Ravico and Donathan Laka will be among the first of the leading drivers to come into the pits. Oh, Simpiwe Zandi, who was trying to apply the pressure on Don Ravico, gets a 3-second time penalty. It's an unforced error for Simpiwe Zandi, and I'm pretty sure that Don Ravico will be aware at this particular point that it is advantage Mercedes in the battle for the race win. Unforced error by Simpiwe Zandi, who was trying to push so as not to be undone by the undercut that Don Ravico has just attempted. But he was already on too many warnings, and that is potentially that. Or could that be the case? Can Simpiwe Zandi find enough pace to be able to nullify the undercut, number one, and the 3-second time penalty? Nightmare scenario for Simpiwe Zandi, who was really set for something special here. We did speak of past races where there was a tendency to make mistakes, costly mistakes, which really resulted in time penalties impacting the outcome of their races. Wandal Shezi noting, of course, that as Simpiwe Zandi finally comes into the pits, we will get a sense of whether or not Don Ravico's undercut would have worked. Simpiwe Zandi will be kicking himself. Came in now at the end of lap number 11, whereas Don Ravico was, of course, a lap earlier. Don Ravico, of course, was stuck in traffic. It is Thiago and Venuccio, Sage Figure of Speech, also ahead. And it looks like Simpiwe Zandi may yet have made it here, folks. Simpiwe Zandi, yes, is going to be out ahead of Don Ravico. So caught in traffic was Don. Oh, it's going to be close. It's contact. But Don Ravico keeps it together. The neutral almost taking Don Ravico out there as he was perhaps too ambitious, the Mercedes driver, trying to make sure that he caught up to Simpiwe Zandi. And this is excellent news for the AlphaTauri driver, who knows that this traffic will cost Don Ravico precious few seconds. And I don't know if you did catch that, but Don Ravico's red light was flashing as on his outlap he was really pushing so hard. Look at that yellow part, depleted, using up that battery to make sure that he dispatches Thiago Maestro now, trying to catch up to Simpiwe Zandi. The gap between these two respective leaders now 1.7 seconds. Remember, Sage Figure of Speech and Duke have yet to come in to the pits. Simpiwe Zandi himself is in the slipstream of the AlphaTauri of Sage Figure of Speech, but has to lift off the throttle. Oh, will he go for it? This would be sensationally audacious through the slower right-hander, I beg your pardon. Will they make contact? Oh, Sage Figure of Speech gives room to the fast-moving Simpiwe Zandi, as Wandal Chesi rightfully notes that Seatley has come into the pits once again. There goes Simpiwe Zandi through on Sage Figure of Speech. They were oh so close through, I believe that was turns 11 and 12 there. Those slower right-handers after the flat-out turn 10. Duke is in the pits as the neutral becomes the latest driver to earn a time penalty. The race leader is back. Simpiwe Zandi has a little bit of daylight between himself and Don Ravico. The gap is almost 2 seconds, 1.8 seconds between Simpiwe Zandi and Don Ravico, who is now trying to overtake the second Alfa Romeo of Sage Figure of Speech. Of course, the Alfa Romeos did not plan on double stacking. And once again, Don Ravico being slowed down to the advantage of Simpiwe Zandi. 2.8, almost 3 seconds that gap, as Don Ravico is using up so much of his battery power to make sure that he can try, huff and puff and keep the Aston Martin within his clutches. Sage Figure of Speech is not going down without a fight. It's Thursday action night. But try as he might, those old hards really not in such a great position at this particular point in time. There goes the Mercedes of Don Ravico into the distance, but despite that, the gap is 3.1 seconds, and one has to wonder how many warnings Don Ravico may have amassed or not. If he's driving a clean race, Don Ravico, then it is still very much advantage Mercedes as far as the win is concerned. Down to the midfield we go. Django, Donathan Laka have already pitted, as has definitely Duke, running also close to the slow-moving Debo Crocodile, whose 13-lap-old tires may yet be costing these guys fighting it out for a podium. Precious few seconds. Debo finally relents concedes and comes in for a pit stop, as does Fitch, figure of speech, and definitely Duke. Now it is Django on the hunt, on the attack versus Donathan Laka. Battle of wits, a battle of pace into turn one. Django was nowhere near close enough to go for it successfully at that particular point in time. And now it is 0.3 of a second, the gap between Django and Donathan Laka. Ferrari, Williams, fighting it out for something special over here. Here he goes. Django on the inside before the braking zone of turn number 8. And he is up to P5. Second pit stop for Duke. What in the heck is going on there? Said Escalo. You're absolutely right. May have had some issues compromising him. Duke was really fighting it out for a podium once upon a time. You would remember. But yeah, that's 2 pit stops alongside Seekley. And now it is a battle for points. And not having the greatest of times out here, Seekley has just overtaken the Red Bull of Zotal. Up for P11. Work to do. Both these drivers in unfamiliar territory. Superb talents, part of the furniture in the top tier of BrakeAway Racing League. Now fighting for their lives just to be in the points after a drama-impacted race. And in the midfield, Tiago, the 86er, sage figure of speech, finally having come in for their pit stops. Tiago making their way out as gets surpassed by the Nucho. And is going to now have to fight and claw his way back up to a respectable points finish. The 86er, what a day for them, has already had 1 pit stop, now up to P8. Started towards the bottom of this field, and has got his work cut out for him. Does the 86er, Gal Latsang. Back in the top tier after spending time in the doldrums of the lower tiers. But he showed his class and battled his way back up to Tier 1. Only 4 points since the start of the season for the 86er. So work to do. Currently 14th of the driver's standings. His teammate Debo Crocodile, distant cousin of Debo Alligator, is all the way up in P6. So the 86er knows what he has to do. Got his work cut out for him. There they are, running in formation. P8 and 9 respectively. Debo Crocodile on the verge, potentially. Of overtaking their teammate. Similar age tires. And as Kaboza rightfully noted some minutes ago, that's Mpiwe Zondi is inching further and further away. So despite that time penalty, Mpiwe Zondi may yet have done enough to clinch what would be a memorable race win here in Tier 1. Debo Crocodile hunting down their teammate. The battle for P8. The 86er Gala Letsang does have that 3-second time penalty, however. Now, it is definitely Duke hunting down Zotal. Oh, look at that relative speed, making light work of the Red Bull. Definitely Duke around the outside, and now looking to bridge that gap to Seekley. And Duke running an alternate strategy, if we could even say so, a set of soft tires with a lot of racing still to go. Meanwhile, it looks like the other Ferrari is, being challenged by Donathan Laka. But the Williams driver not quite close enough to go for it. The Nucho versus Thiago Maestro was another battle to watch very, very closely at this particular point in time. Oh, Thiago Maestro stretching the legs of that AlphaTauri, making sure that he gives the Nucho absolutely zero hope at this particular point in time. An alternate tire strategy by Thiago, who fitted a set of softs, and perhaps content to take them for about would be 10 or 11 or so laps to come the end of this race. Got his work cut out for him. He's going to be in good nick for now, will Thiago. But, at the end of this race will really be under all of the pressure. What a day, Simpiwe Zandi, despite the error that cost him 3 seconds worth of time penalties, was in pole position, has led pretty much from the start as Thiago sets the fastest lap of the day. May yet be surpassed, depending on how the rest of the field does. Still a lot of racing to go, still a lot of fuel to burn. Simpiwe Zandi now 5 seconds ahead of Don Ravico, who has been bullish as far as his own championship prospects are concerned, but has not had it easy at all. 5 seconds off the pace. Also down to about 16% of his battery power. Oh, would you look at that? Even Stevens also racking up a time penalty there for track limit incursions. And, well, Simpiwe Zandi would hope that, well, he does not rack up too many warnings so as to make it a 6-second time penalty, because that would reel Don Rabico straight back into the reckoning. Django, a further 12 seconds behind the top two. Also flashing down to about 10% of their battery power. Donathan Laka tries he might, could not keep up with the Ferrari driver. The gap between them about 2 seconds. Such figure of speech, what a day this would be for Sijabaliso. Up until today, had racked up a total of 7 championship points. And well, he would not say no to P5 at the end of this race. Would do him very, very well indeed. Such figure of speech, this is race number 5 up until now. This is his 4th race that he would have competed in. So there's one race that he had missed earlier on in this season. Currently 13th with 7 points. Ahead of him in the championship standings is Grimjaw on 10 points in P12. And then in P11 on 16 total points is the man currently 12th, Zotao. Work to do. Gallo Latsang versus the Nucho. In the stretch towards the chicane of turns number 8 and 9. Oh, it's a drag race. Gallo Latsang using a little bit of battery power will have the inside line into the braking zone. The Nucho is going to have to watch it. Oh, his line was compromised there. But the question is by how much, as he now has Debo Crocodile, distant cousin of Debo Alligator, to contend with. Both the Ferrari and the Alpine of Debo are down to their scraps as far as remaining electrical power is concerned. Debo has been cheered on earlier on as far as his performances on this track by Man Ray. Now needs to show his mettle, show his class, show his worth with 7 laps of racing still to go. Can Debo Crocodile dispatch of the Nucho ahead, or will the Ferrari superstar make sure that he keeps the Alpine at bay? The Ferrari is the meat in an Alpine sandwich currently. Work to do for the Nucho, whose teammate is having a fairly lonely one at this particular point in time, all the way up on the podium places. Here comes Debo Crocodile, distant cousin of Debo Alligator. It's a drag race down towards turn number 1, and Debo makes it a clean overtake in towards P8. Debo Crocodile driving without incident. Perhaps he may have had warnings, but I tell you what, he's kept it clean. No time penalties, which will do him very, very well come the end of this race if he can inch closer and closer, A, to their teammate Gallo Sang, the 86er, and B, somehow to Thiago Maestro. But the latter may yet be hard to do. Speaking of Thiago, he's within a second of stage figure of speech. Make that hovering at a half a second, and as you can see, he's got the faster tire at this particular point in time. Those red hot, red wheeled or red walled soft compound tires. The quickest set of tire, of course, which does degrade quicker. So towards the end of this race, it will be advantage stage figure of speech. And now Thiago, with the superior grip, is content to take a much speedier route through turns 11 and 12. This is 13, however, and Thiago tighter to the apex as they now are coming to approach the penultimate turn number 14 into the right-hander at 15, and perhaps that is when Thiago will be content to absolutely send it Past. Oh, the Alfa Romeo might have spoken too soon. Thiago's exit was not the cleanest. He had to catch the rear of that car, but he does have a little bit of battery power that he could deploy, and he ducks into the inside. Oh, it could have been audacious, but he opted to bide his time to Thiago Maestro, and Stage figure of speech was not going to make life easy for the AlphaTauri driver, who was being cheered on somewhere by their teammate, Romeo Mandla Masenko, who sadly had to retire from this race earlier on. Loveness has crashed out. Is it a DNF by virtue of crashing out? No. It seems like another pit lane retirement by the Haas driver, making it a full house of Haas retirement. So they're not happy at all over there for the American team, retiring both their cars today as the AlphaTauri of Thiago Maestro sends it on the inside before the braking zone of turn number 8. It's a clean overtake for Thiago on those quicker soft tires. Now up to P5. What a day that would be if he can somehow hang on to that position. Seekley, Duke, having an almighty battle, a titanic tussle for the 10th spot, the place, the final points position over here. A, position that Seekley, of course, is not necessarily used to. But, of course, circumstances have seen him tumble down the order and has to contend with a P10 spot if all goes well between now and the end of this race. Lap 21 of a total 27. Lots of racing still to go, as Duke is looking to apply all of the pressure. Pitted one lap earlier than Thiago did, Duke. Also on this alternate tire strategy, choosing the softs with a lot of racing that still remained. And at some particular point, we'll definitely be feeling the grip start to go from those soft tires. Stage figure of speech and Thiago Maestro have resumed their rivalry in this 22nd lap. That Piwe Zandi had already begun. Let's take a look at the penalty situation here, folks. 3 seconds for each of Simps, Don Rabico, Thiago Maestro, Galil Tang, the 86er, and Seekley. The Nuccio not having the best of days. 8 seconds worth of time penalties. Perhaps, of course, a 3 second as well as a 5 second time penalty that the Nuccio would have notched up in another earlier part of this race. As we catch back up with Duke. See, he's well within a second. Well, if you've just joined us, you're in time to catch the dramatic climax of this race, the 5th race here in France. Please remember to like the stream, subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. It is top-tier BrakeAway Racing League action. The Alfa Romeo of Duke versus the McLaren of Seekley. Who is not having such a great day. Seekley second in the driver's standings on 61 points, but it is daylight between Seekley and Don Rabico. Don on 94 points, Seekley on just 61 points, according to the latest tally that I got. Smart Jangle on 60 points, so it's very close between the former teammates. Just a point separating them, and then it is quite a gap from P3 to 4. Thiago Maestro, in his rookie season, currently 4th in the driver's standings on 27 points. Doing very well. Had a shaky start to their season, but has regrouped and gathered themselves back up and has been looking very good from race number 2 onwards. Both Duke and Seekley have now caught up to the back of the Nuccio, whose time penalty would have had him in a huge deal of trouble. Work to do. Zotal is about 4 seconds off this trio. We're now fighting it out for P9. Through goes Seekley. Will Duke be able to go through? He will try on the outside of the Ferrari, and he's done it. The Nuccio now tucks into the slipstream of the Alfa Romeo, and it is also close. Definitely Duke had been using up so much of his battery just to try and stay in touch with the McLaren of Seekley, who's been really pulling all these drivers along now. And the Nuccio, who's down to scraps battery power, he's also flashing. Look at that bar down at the bottom. Oh, the Nuccio. He could have been an audacious dive on the inside through the slower right-hander of Duke there, but was not quite close enough to get it done. Interestingly, Duke does not have a time penalty. Seekley does. So all Duke needs to do here is stay within 3 seconds. Even if those tires die, and he starts to feel the grip slip away, and he starts to feel Seathley slowly try to stretch that gap. All he needs to do is mind that 3-second gap. That is assuming, of course, that he himself is not at risk. Duke towards turn number 1. Oh, Zotal, the latest driver to rack up a 3-second time penalty, meaning Django, Jonathan Laka, Sage Figure of Speech, Debo Crocodile, and Duke are your only remaining racers who have yet to be penalized for track limits. Duke tucks out of the slipstream of the McLaren so as to not overheat those soft tires, which by now I'm sure might just be starting to complain a little bit for definitely Duke. Work to do. He's in the points, is Duke. And up until the start of today, he had racked up 23 championship points. Well, it would be 24 if he clings on here to P10. But considering that gap is very kind to Duke, he may yet get P9 from Seathley. Simpiwe Zondi has been the story of the day here as far as performance is concerned. Has a 6.2 second advantage to Don Rabico. Has kept it clean, has kept it steady, has kept his head down, and has tried to minimize mistakes. The one significant one being, of course, that 3-second time penalty for track limits. Zotal becomes the latest driver to retire in the pits. Waving the white flag is Zotal. Seeing no need to carry on, Zotal says, well, you know what? It's futile. I don't think I'm going to be within the points. I may as well pack it in, save the engine for future races, and makes it a total of 4 retirements in the pits. All of them veteran Tier 1 drivers. Zotal, part of the furniture in the top tier. Loveness, part of the furniture in the top tier. Romeo Mandla Massingo, founding member, part of the furniture, also retired. And Ban Kobe, 4 top tier drivers retiring. Pretty much throwing in the towel and saying, well, don't want to waste this engine anymore. I'll just save it for future races. And yeah, things are looking very, very bleak out here in France for those veteran Tier 1 drivers. They're just going to have to pack it up, keep their chins up, and try and do something special in race number 6, 7 onwards. Can it be done? It is also tight. It is also difficult just to claim points in the top tier of BrakeAway Racing League, especially as those assists keep on getting stripped away race after race. Zotal retiring means he will end race week 5 on the 16 total points that he had amassed up until this season. Loveness, who also retired, meaning he will not add to his 17 points. Loveness is 10th in the driver's standing. Zotal is 11th. Ban Kobe, remember, only had the 1 championship point. He's down in P18 is Ban Kobe. And Romeo Mandla Massingo only had 2 championship points. He's down in P16. Mex is back in the top tier, and there are whispers that Fence may not be racing in Tier 1 for the remainder of this season. But that, of course, will be confirmed in coming weeks. So we'll see whether or not another Tier 2 contender will be joining these ranks alongside Mex, who we have yet to see back racing in Tier 1 since his reinstatement into the top tier. Simps, the class of the field, has just crossed the line to begin the 27th and final lap of this race. Don Rabico, 7.2 seconds off the pace. Merch Django, no time penalties, but daylight between themselves and the top 2. Jonathan Laka, what a day this would be. P4, sensational work by the brilliantly consistent Williams driver. Thiago Maestro, 5th in the 5th race of this season. Not bad indeed. Sage Figure of Speech. Sajab P6 from Gala Latsang, the 86er, in that 7th spot as they begin their final lap of this race. Debo Crocodile, distant cousin of Debo Alligator. Oh, the Nucho has retired in the pits. The Nucho, also perhaps at this point, considering the time penalty, considering, the distance between themselves, and definitely Duke saying, well, that is that as far as my race prospects are concerned, opting not to waste that engine. But he may as well have just come across the line to finish. It was also close towards the end, was the Nucho there, becoming the 5th retiree in the pits. Thankfully, no safety cars here today, but a man who has kept it absolutely sensational and clinical is none other than Sempiwe Zandi, who comes across the line to win in France. A sensational performance, leading from the front. He claimed pole position in style, and he comes across the line to win. Don Rabico tries he might, could only manage P2 with that time penalty to boot. It is still a podium place for Don Rabico, extending their lead at the top of the championship standings. Smirch Jangle will bring it home for another podium finish for Team Ferrari. It is P3 for the former champion. Donathan Lacka brings it home in P4 for Team Williams. Tiago Maestro, take a bow in your rookie season, trying to keep it consistent. It is P5 for the AlphaTauri superstar. Sige, figure of speech, comes home in 6th. Galalet Sang pips Cicle to P7 for Alpine, and Cicle will be pipped. I believe Cicle goes all the way down to P10, courtesy of all those time penalties, and that is that as far as the points are concerned. What a day. Donathan Lacka voted driver of the day. Do you concur? As Kaboza in the comment section says, hey, it is painful up there in Tier 1. Watching all those retirements in the pits, watching how tough it is just to scrap and scrape some points. Sempiwe Zandi take a bow, top step of the podium. Sensational pace, sensational performance, brilliantly done from qualifying all the way through to now. Sempiwe Zandi, what a result that is for the Aston Martin superstar. Brilliantly done. As we wait to see Cicle versus Duke, said Estello in the comment section. Sims is very strong here, said Estello earlier on. And Estello also responding to Kaboza, who was saying how difficult it is in the top tier. 3-second gap, the top runners are fighting, so said Luddy earlier on. And what a day that was. The first driver to join us in the commentary box is back up in the podium places. It is Django. Congratulations, P3 podium place. Take us through that race. How was that from your perspective? Cicle, a bit upset with you in the comment section. Take us through that race and indeed that incident which sent Cicle tumbling down the order. Django, your mic might be muted.
My check.
There we go. Loud and clear. Congratulations.
Oh, thank time, and it was a tricky one. It was a very tricky race. Quali was quite a mess because I took race setup instead, and yeah, I knew it wasn't. I wasn't expecting to be fast there, but yeah, it was quite a mess there.
And you still managed to claw your way up to the podium places. Take us through the incident. I believe we were actually watching that action, the coming together. I think it was turn 11 after the fast right-hander with Cicle, the incident that took the McLaren driver out, who is, of course, disappointed. What happened there from your perspective?
I don't know. I have to watch it back. I was on the outside, and I think he was on the inside, and it might have happened that earlier. Knocked onto his front left, and we both. I don't know. I will check, but we raced cleanly the DRS straight, so of course it wasn't anyone's intentions. Clearly not from my side. And if it is my fault, I'll have to check it back. But I'll check it and then I'll speak to you. And I will leave it to the stewards, I guess.
It wasn't the only battle that you were involved in. After that, you came under quite some pressure. Just take us through the contenders that were really trying to put you under all the pressure there.
Yeah, it was quite fun. It was quite fun. After spinning, I think the best thing you can do is race manage and not to try to spin again, because tires are either still cold or very hot. And, I think Tiago came in and challenging, and I managed to pass him, and then I saw he spun. And then Jonathan Lara held, for quite some time. Wanted to give myself a gap of, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 seconds, just in case I get an incident, it's my fault, so that I can keep the position. So I was looking at the time, and Jonathan Lack was in my DRS for so long, and I was like, oh, okay, it's my little ERS that I have. And yeah, I managed to get out of the 5 seconds. Hopefully, I don't get a penalty, but yeah.
Well, fingers crossed there. Cicle says he won't be going to the stewards, despite his disappointment there. So we do look forward to seeing you guys battle it out. Next up, I remember last season we had a dramatic race with Mercurial Caesar, of course, in Spain. That is the next track. I just want to hear your expectations of your own pace around there. And of course, a word on the performance of Simpiwe Zondi, who was in a class of his own today.
Yeah, seems actually surprised all of us. We know he has pace, but his pace was quite crazy, especially the quali. And I thought maybe he had a quali up, and then he was gonna crumble in the race. But he really did a great job. So looking forward to this one, and of course it's gonna be very dramatic, and it's a very racy track. And looking forward to it. With Sims also, I hope he does come through and he doesn't get affected by load shedding, so that we can, and Duke as well, so that we have a four-way or five-way race in the next one, which is going to be so nice. And you're on mute if you're speaking. Mr. Ty is on mute, but anyway. I see my guy. I'm so sorry.
I was on mute this entire time. Sorry, I thought I was just literally speaking to myself.
Yeah.
Django, I just wanted to ask you, because Don Rabico left he came in and then he quickly left the chat. Might be having issues. So I want to know what you know, what sort of intel you have as far as the pace of Don Rabico, Piwe Zondi, Duke, Cicle around Spain, and what you're expecting pace-wise and challenge-wise from them.
We kind of practice together, so I know very well. Not giving too much away, but it's what I can say is it's gonna be nice, and everyone should tune in for. It will be like a season finale because everybody's fast in Spain. So, and it's the pace difference is very close. I will say it's only gonna be. If you want to win, you gotta have the best strategy. Hopefully, it doesn't rain.
Hopefully, man. We had a beautiful weather here today. Well, Django, thank you very much. Congratulations. Smirch Django coming on the podium once again in P3. Don Rabico in P2. And your race winner, who sadly could not join us in today's lobby, Simpiwe Zondi. Congratulations to all three of them. We will be seeing you in Spain next week, Thursday. It could be 7:30 or 8 p.m. Central African time, depending on driver availability. But thank you very much for tuning in, and we will be catching you next week. Thank you, everyone in the comment section who has been interacting throughout this race, and we'll definitely hope to see you in Spain next time round. Thank you, Django, and thank you, everybody, and good night.
Guys.